You know that accept all cookies button you click a dozen times a day? Ever stop and wonder what it really means? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most powerful privacy laws on the planet, the GDPR. We're going to break down what it is, who it affects, and why it's a huge deal every single time you go online. So we're going to tackle this in four simple parts. First, we'll look at why a law like GDPR was even necessary in the first place. Then we'll get into the actual rules of the game. After that, my favorite part, we'll talk about the specific rights you now have over your own data. And finally, we'll see what happens when companies don't play by the rules.
To really get why GDPR is so important, you kind of have to imagine the internet before it. It was basically the Wild West. Our personal data was this massive, unregulated resource, just out there for the taking, collected, bought, and sold on a huge scale. And honestly, most of us had no real idea it was even happening.
I mean, let's be real. Data has become one of the most valuable things in the world. But that value comes with a massive risk. Just look at this number from 2021. Over 155 million records were exposed in data breaches. That's not just a statistic, it's a constant threat that our personal information could be compromised at any moment. So, with more than half the planet online, this data explosion created a really fundamental problem for all of us. As our lives moved more and more into the digital world, the big question became, how in the world do we make sure our personal information is actually being protected? And the European Union's answer to that question was the GDPR. It was officially enacted back in 2016 and then went into full force in 2018. You can think of it as the new sheriff in town, designed to bring some serious order to the chaos and set a clear, binding set of rules to protect the data of everyone in the EU. And what I love about GDPR is that its goals are all about empowering you. It really boils down to three things. First, giving you explicit control over your data. Second, building trust by making companies accountable for keeping it safe. And third, simplicity, getting rid of a whole mess of different privacy rules and creating one clear standard for everyone. Okay, so how does all this actually work? Let's get into the nitty-gritty and break down who's responsible for what kind of data we're even talking about, and just how far this law of reach really goes. So, GDPR sets up two key roles. You've got the data controller. Think of them as the owner. They're the company that decides why your data is being collected and how it's going to be used. They are the ones who are ultimately responsible. Then you have the data processor. That's usually a third party, like a cloud provider, that just handles the data based on the controller's instructions. And that whole relationship is locked down by a super strict contract. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The definition of personal data under GDPR is incredibly broad. It's not just your name or your email address. We're talking about your IP address, your location data, web cookies, even bits of info that seem harmless on their own but could identify you when put together. So a company knowing your favorite color? Probably not personal data, but knowing your license plate number? Oh yeah, that definitely is. And here's the part that really shook things up. GDPR's reach is global. It doesn't matter one bit where your company is located. If you're in the US or Japan or anywhere else, if you handle the personal data of anyone inside the European Union, this law applies to you. Period. Okay, this is where GDPR really puts the power back where it belongs, in your hands. Let's walk through three of the most important rights that you have over your own information. First up, the right to access. It's pretty much what it sounds like. You can go to any company and say, hey, show me everything you've got on me. And they have to give you a complete copy of all your personal data. The best part? They usually can't even charge you for it. It gives you a crystal clear picture of what they have and why. Next, you have the right to correction. So if a company has information about you that's just plain wrong or incomplete, you have the right to get it fixed. And get this, if they've shared that wrong data with anyone else, they actually have to go tell those other companies about the correction too. And then there's maybe the most famous one, the right to be forgotten. This is huge. If a company collected your data for a specific reason and they don't need it for that reason anymore, you can tell them to just delete it. This whole idea actually came from a case where a guy in Spain successfully forced Google to remove old search results about his past debts. A total game changer. So what happens if a company just decides to ignore all these rules? Well, GDPR has some serious teeth, but the story isn't just about punishment.
The penalties for not complying are, well, they're massive. For really serious violations, a company can be fined up to 20 million euros, or 4% of their total global revenue from the year before. And here's the kicker. It's whichever of those two numbers is higher. These are fines designed to make even the biggest companies in the world sit up and pay attention. To really put that into perspective, think about the TalkTalk data breach back in 2017. Under the old rules, they got fined £400,000. Not nothing, but manageable. If that exact same breach had happened under GDPR, the fine could have been as high as £59 million. That's a completely different league. But just focusing on those scary, giant fines kind of misses the bigger picture here. Being compliant with GDPR isn't just about dodging a financial bullet. And that brings us to this final, really critical question. Is this whole regulation just more red tape? Another headache for businesses? Or is there actually an opportunity hidden inside all of this? And that's really the bottom line. Instead of seeing GDPR as a burden, the smartest companies are seeing it as a chance to build deep, lasting trust with their customers. Just look at a company like Apple. They now market privacy as a core feature of their products. They're not just complying with the law. They're building their entire brand around respecting your data. And that turns a regulation into a powerful competitive advantage. Because in the end, it's not just about the law. It's about the relationship.